Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. So today I am chatting with my friend Samantha Mabe. She is an amazing podcast host and Squarespace website designer. Her podcast is Process to Profitability. Samantha, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Colie. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you because you talk about my favorite subject outside of CRMs, and that would be websites. So, Samantha, why don't you tell the listening audience where you're located and who you service?
So I am just outside of Richmond, Virginia, and I work with service providers and course creators. Really, they are experts at what they do, and they need to show that off online. And generally, they have like a signature offer that we can highlight on their website.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty, because this is the one thing that you and I agree on is, why does everyone need a website?
It's your online home. I know there are so many people out there who say you don't need a website to sell your packages, but I don't think a business is very legitimate if they don't have a website. I won't go to a restaurant. I won't hire a plumber. I won't hire a photographer if they don't have a website that's really showcasing all of their business. And it is the place that people go to after they've kind of found you on social media. So you don't have to worry about everything being on a platform that could go down or change, or the algorithm changes and you never show up anymore. Like, it is there online. It's your space where you can really show off who you are.
I mean, Samantha, you like cut me off at the knees for my next question, which I was going to be like, yeah, but like I have an Instagram account and all of my clients find me on Instagram. And you've already said, even if you have great social media, you still need your website because it's what legitimizes you. It's what makes you seem like a professional. But so let's get to like who you service and why we need a website from the perspective of a sales page. So first of all, why don't you tell me 3 things that are most important to have on a sales page?
Your most important thing is your headline, because that is going to determine whether people keep scrolling or not. The next important thing is more of a design thing. So you just need to have space. You can't have everything clumped together in really long paragraphs. People aren't going to read it. And then make sure you have calls to action throughout.
I'm glad that you added the word throughout. So let's talk about this. Like let's say that it takes 6 scrolls to get from the top of my sales page to the bottom. Mm-hmm. How many call to actions should I have? And like, what's the best call to action that you've ever seen on a website?
Ooh. Well, I tell people to have a call to action button every 2 to 3 scrolls. I think that's a good ratio of not bombarding people with it all the time, but they don't have to go up to the bottom or top of the page. And the best call to action I have seen, I just really like the fun personality branded ones. I did a website for a copywriter, and she had some really fun ones that were like super on brand, but still got to the point.
So, I mean, like you said, it was kind of filled with personality. Do you happen to remember what the actual call to action was?
Let me look it up.
Okay. I mean, and the reason that I'm asking is because I can't be the only one that struggles to tell people interesting and fun ways to just fucking hire me. I can't be the only person that struggles with this. And so sometimes I have legitimately wanted to put on a button, just fucking hire me. And I know that would be really bad. And Samantha's like, oh my God, next time I look at your website, is that going to be on there? But
she has one that says SOS, help me, please.
Now, see, that is really awesome. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And then in her services page where she's got like the 3 main services she offers, I like the one she has, I want you to fix this spicy disaster.
I mean, and so your call to actions don't necessarily need to be the really common ones that we see are like, learn more, contact me, book your consultation call. Like, I feel like those are so plain and lack personality. Whereas, I mean, I know that there are a lot of copywriters that write a lot of great copy, and it's something that I see on websites. It's like, you have this really great about me section, And then the call to action is learn more. And
Yep.
it's like, but you had all of this really great copy, and then you expect me to click where it legitimately says learn more. Go
I
ahead.
think it's something we just leave. We don't think about that part, even though that's where you actually want people to take an action. So it needs to drive them to do that.
So, in terms of call to actions, I feel like there's always like three pieces to a really good call to action. First of all, it should be a button, right? Like it
Yep.
should be a button that's visual, which means you have to choose the size of the button, the color of the button, the font on the button, and then there's the actual copy, which is the words that we've been talking about. So, are there any do nots in terms of choosing your button size, your fonts, your colors, anything like that? You know, I'm sure you have horrible stories where you've gone through someone's website and you're like, oh my God, like, why are you using lime green for that call to action?
Yeah. The biggest thing, so you said it needs to be a button, not just a link. I think a lot of people make that mistake. A bright color is going to stand out more. So people will tell you that reds, oranges, yellows get people to click more often. But if that's really outside of your brand, you can do something like a teal or a green, as long as it stands out from everything else that's on the page. And then you need to make sure there's space around the copy of your button. So give it some breathing room. And then make sure the contrast between your font color and your button color is high enough for people to read it. So usually that means if you're using like a yellow button, a white font looks really nice, but people can't read it. So it needs to
Okay.
be a darker color.
I totally understand. And I'm glad that you said teal because I think you know most of the buttons on my website are
Yeah.
teal. So good job because red buttons do not belong anywhere on my website.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you didn't mention that I feel compelled to say is that you should make sure that that font is legible. I
Yes.
mean, I have seen buttons that have a font script. And I'm like, why would you put a script font on that button? Like, I can't read that. So why would I ever
Yeah.
click that? Like, it baffles my mind when people do that.
Yes. I think I forget people even do that because font scripts, if you're going to use them, really only belong in like small headlines that have like 4 words.
Okay, so let's talk about copy. Because one of the things that I've never heard you harp on, but like other website designers that I talk to, like it's like they draw a line and they're like, if you do not have professionally written copy, I will not work with you. So, Samantha, let's talk about the importance of professional copy. First of all, do all of your clients have their copy professionally written?
No.
So, when it comes to designing a website, is it easier for you to do your job if they have professional copy?
Yes. Like 100% easier.
So, do you have like a list of copywriters that you will send your clients to if they don't have professional copy? Like, how does it work out when someone comes to you and they're like, I know I need a website, but I don't really know what the website needs to say. And I don't have any copy to go along with, like, you know, these images or whatever my offer is. What do you tell them?
That's very common. So I give them a couple options. One, I've got a list of copywriters that I've connected with who work with different industries so they can kind of pick somebody whose personality meshes, who understands the industry that they're in. Or they can go through, and I have this super detailed outline with, you need a headline. It's going to say something like this. Here's an example. You need an introduction, like every section you could possibly need. I have outlined, and obviously I'm not a copywriter, so I'm just kind of giving them the sections that are really popular and then a couple examples of ones that I've really liked. And I will be working with a copywriter to kind of refine that template so that they're getting kind of the in between of working with a copywriter without the overall investment. But having it laid out that way helps a ton when I'm designing, because I have found if you write it all yourself, I am going in there and like breaking text up and making bullet points and like basically rewriting it because I can't stand to have it not convert, which is just a lot of extra work for me, which means you don't get as much fun design stuff.
So I know one of your offers is a VIP day because, of course, that's how you and I met. We were both in
Yep.
the Done in a Day program. But I know a lot of people that are like, I don't understand how you do a VIP day for a website. Like, how do you get all of the pages that you need? So let's start with, are most people that are coming to you for a VIP day, is this their first website, or are they getting like a brand new iteration? Or are you basically going in there and like refining and optimizing the website that they already have? What is more common for the people that you work with?
Most of the people I work with have a website already, and we are creating a new one. We'll be keeping
Okay.
some of what they've already got, but sometimes we're moving platforms and everything. So we're basically starting from scratch.
And so, what are the common website pages that you could actually get done in a VIP day?
I tell people that I do a homepage, an about page, a services or a short sales page, a contact page, and then I will set up a template for their blog in one VIP day. If they need more than that, we can add on a second one.
So, those 5 pages are basically what everyone could expect to get if they were hiring for like a website in a day. What's the benefit of doing it as a VIP day instead of like a full service that, often takes 6 weeks to 2 months?
The biggest benefit that I have seen is for me, both me and my clients, is we get it done. So at the end of the day, your website's actually finished. You're not, what happens is even if it's a 6 week process, if you've got that time, things get delayed over more and more on that. It doesn't matter if I say we're going to be done in 6 weeks, somehow something always comes up and you can't get
Mm-hmm.
feedback back to me, or we need to change a whole lot more stuff. When we've got that 1 day container, it's really easy to say, we're going to get it done at the end of the day. It's going to be finished. And generally, people don't spend as much time nitpicking over, we need to move this over 2 pixels. That's really not going to affect anything on the conversions of their site.
Because at the end of the day, right, that's really all we care about is the website going to convert? And I feel like having a VIP day as the provider helps you, stay on track, helps you give your clients your full brain capacity for that one day. But I feel like people often overlook the benefits to them, which is you have bullshitted around and pushed this down the road for 3 months, and you've been trying to sell this offer, and you've been doing it, you haven't been doing it well because you didn't have a website that explained what you do and what you offer and what transformation that client's going to have. But if you end up doing your website as a VIP day, I always tell people, like, this could just be a starting point, like you said. I mean, because basically to have a website that converts, you need your homepage, you need your services page. I would argue that you don't even need the about page, but like I get, everybody wants to hear the backstory. I love my new about page, I will admit. But like, I feel like I don't need that in order to sell my services. But I absolutely need a homepage, a services page, and a freaking contact page where you
Mm-hmm.
land on it and it's clear that your only job when you get on this contact page is to give me your information so that we can start the process of whatever services it is that you want to hire me for. But like, for the website, we just want it to convert. And even if the website that you have at the end of the day is not the website that you may have down the road, at least it's done, at
Yeah.
least it's live. At least you've had a professional help you with it so that you know that it's going to convert. You know that all of your buttons work. You know that it's laid out in a way to where it's easy for people to understand. I feel like sometimes people really overlook the benefit of having a professional help you do it and lay it out so that at the end of the day, you have something that's functional.
Mm-hmm.
If you offer, I don't know, I mean, of course, I'm a big believer in, you create this one service and you sell the shit out of it until you can actually like do your more services. But like at the end of the day, if you have a services page for one of your offers, at least that is out in the world and you are able to sell it. And then if you have service number 2, service number 3, service number 4, you can always add those on as you go, but get the website done, get it live so that when people are looking for you, they can find you. As you said, it's professional. It's like your online address to the world. For those of us that are in online business, we don't have a store to
Yep.
people for people to come to. So that is like your, it's your storefront. It's the
Yeah.
location where everyone can find you.
Absolutely. And no matter who designs your website, it's going to change over time. You're going to have to test things out, test out your copy. And unless it's actually out there in the world, you have no data. So you might think this is the greatest design ever, but until people are actually coming and you can see if they are clicking on those calls to action and hiring you, you have no data to say that it's a good design. So you've always got to start somewhere, and you've got to get it out there if you want to improve down the road.
And I mean, let's talk about Google, because, I feel like that's always the elephant in the room. You need a beautiful website. You need one where when people land on it, they know that you're a professional and they're not automatically turned off by the
Mm-hmm.
way that you use like 12 different fonts on one page. And, everything is together and your eyes are like darting back and forth and don't know where to land. But there's a benefit to getting your website done as quickly as possible as well, so that Google can start to work for you. You can start to optimize your website for, search engine optimization. So what kind of things, like tell me two things that everyone should do in order to optimize the SEO for their website?
Well, the first thing you want to do is get your page descriptions up for every page. They need to be like sentence form. We're not just keyword stuffing. Actually write those out, and then submit your sitemap to Google Search Console so that it forces Google to take a look at it. It will tell you if there are any weird issues that Google doesn't like, because they have been adding lots of stuff that they're evaluating. And you know that they are looking at your site, they're going through it. So you've got a higher chance of ranking than if you just put it online and you hope somebody stumbles across it.
You know how I feel about hopeful marketing, Samantha. You just, guys, if you haven't listened to that episode of the podcast, that's just when you put your offer out there and you just hope that someone's going to miraculously hire you. It bothers me a lot. But I will say, one of the things that I discovered when I was kind of transitioning my business from doing only photography and mentoring for photographers, and now that I'm, doing all this setup services for photographers and other creative professionals using Dubsado, I don't know why I didn't have a website for that service until this year. It is still baffling to me that I went like an entire year of offering my Dubsado services and it didn't actually have its own website. Because I will say that, from when I started my photography business, my first 1 to 3 years, I think like 80 or 90% of my clients came from Google. So I know how important it is to have a website. I know how important it is to have a really good SEO, so that when people are searching for Boulder family photographer, my amazing face is smiling at them on the internet. I know how important that is. But when I started transitioning into offering Dubsado, I was like, oh, I don't need a separate website. Like my photography website had a page for Dubsado,
Mm.
and that's good enough. Like when someone searches for Dubsado, I was on page one, but I wasn't thinking of how much better it could be if I had a separate website for that, because customer confusion is
Mm-hmm.
something that you want to avoid at all costs. And I just felt like if someone didn't know who I was and what it was that I was offering, and they were searching for a Dubsado specialist, and they ended up on my photography website, even though the page was very clear about how I set your Dubsado up, they were probably confused when they looked at the menu and it's like family photography, newborn photography, commercial photography. Like, what does that have to do with my Dubsado setup? So earlier this year, I ended up just taking the sales page that I had on my photography website and I stuck it on ColieJames.com. And then I was like, but holy shit, there's no homepage. There's no about page. There's not any of these pages that Samantha is telling us that we all need. So this year I did go through the process of actually creating a full blown website for Colie James. And I will say it's already ranking. Like if you search Dubsado setup for family photographers or Dubsado for photographers or basically any of those things, I'm on page one, baby. Still working on my other keywords. But I mean, that's how quickly these things can work for you guys. But I do just want to put it out there. This is a long game, right, Samantha? So when
Mm-hmm.
someone launches their website and they look the next month and they're like, oh, I'm still not appearing when someone uses my keywords. Like on average, how long does it take someone to be able to see the results in terms of search engine optimization for a website that they've just published?
That's a hard question because it really depends on the keywords you're using. So if you were trying to rank for newborn photographer, it's going to take forever. You probably will never do it. Like there are people that pay money to rank for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you are really specific, like Dubsado set up for family photographers, you can rank a whole lot faster because you're very specific in what you're trying to share. And when people are coming to look for something like that, they're probably more ready to take action than if they're just searching, like, how do I set up my Dubsado, or like any of those more generic terms, because they know what they want, and so they're, if they land on your site, they're more ready to take action.
But I mean, in general, it's a long game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one should publish their website and feel like the next week it's going to have worked its magic and Google is going to automatically recognize you as the expert in your field and start showing your website to everyone. So
Yep.
that's why it's important to get it done as quick as possible so that you can start to build longevity on your website. You can start to have people that are looking for you, and you can start to build those things that make your SEO great so that when someone hires you, you've got this high converting website where it talks about what your offer is, how you're going to help them, and it makes it easier for them to just click that button, contact you, schedule a consultation call, pay you real American dollars, whatever it is that your goal is for that website.
Yep. Yeah, I tell people to give it at least 30 days to make sure that it's even starting to rank. And then you need to be publishing content. If that's really what you're concentrating on, is having people find you on Google, you need to be publishing something like blogs or podcasts through your website so
Ding,
that
ding,
there's
ding.
always new content that it's looking at. There's always more keywords. You're providing really high value. So on your homepage, you're not providing super high value for your clients because
No.
you can't teach them anything there. You're not really answering questions. That's where something like a blog or a podcast with show notes comes in. So get your website up there, and then that's part of growing, is to continue to like publish those things as you are already set up to have the conversions once they get there.
And when I was still doing just photography, because like I said, I mean, I really focused on my website from day one. Like that was my marketing like technique, if you will. I wanted to make sure that anytime anyone Googled anything related to my services for photography, I was on page one. But how I got there was, I mean, I have hundreds upon hundreds of blog posts on my photography website.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are sessions. You know, some of them just talk about people that I've worked with. But then I have those really informative blog posts like, okay, what can we do for your documentary family photography session? What is it like to have a photography session on vacation? Like all of those things that people are going to be Googling to find out more information about. I tried to have a blog post answering that question so that Google, and of course, all of the people who are looking for a photographer
Mm-hmm.
and are searching for these things, would have someone that they could see as the expert in order to get my website ranked higher and higher. And it's really interesting that you mentioned the podcast, because you and I are both podcasters.
Yep.
We are both one-to-one service providers. And so people don't really understand that one of the benefits of having this podcast is that it does help visibility. It does help people see me as the expert in that service, which, guys, in case you're listening and you actually don't know this, I set up people's Dubsado accounts. Are you surprised? So, I mean, but every time I publish a podcast episode, every time I put the transcript in there, that is just information that Google can look through and, you know, rank and figure out whether or not I am a good person. And the more people that are visiting your website, the longer they spend on your
Mm-hmm.
website, that is how Google determines whether or not you are an expert. I used to have a great bounce rate. I mean, Samantha, can you believe that for the longest on my photography website, my bounce rate was under 15%?
That's
Like
crazy.
everyone came to my photography website and they would hang out for like 5 to 10 minutes. Cause
Wow.
I'm a data whore. I was like in Google Analytics all the time looking. I will say it's not that way anymore. I mean, my bounce rate is way up to like 50 or 60% where normal people hang
Right.
out. But for the longest, when people would ask me my bounce rate and I'd be like, oh, it's under 15%, their jaw would drop and they would kind of be like, yeah, that's not right. And so I would have to like keep screenshots so that I could tell
Yeah.
people, no, I promise I do know what I'm looking at. People come to my website and they don't leave. Now that, you know what, Samantha, I just thought of a really good question to ask you. We talked about the different pages that you set up during a VIP day and different pages that you think are important. But what do you think about one page websites? I feel like every time I talk to a website expert, I should talk about one page websites because a lot of people don't understand what they are and they don't understand why they can actually be harmful to your SEO.
I think if that's all you can get up to get started, it's better than nothing. But once you are really committed to your business, you need more pages. It drives me crazy when I go to a website and I like hit the menu and it just scrolls me down the page. I'm like, I already read that. I read the whole page the first time. I don't want to
What
read it
else you
again.
got?
Yeah. And when you're trying to give them a lot of information, like an about page is a good example, that bio that you get on your homepage, if that's all you've got, people are going to be like, okay, but there has to be more, right? And you can't include that on a one page website because no one's going to keep reading. So I like people to keep it simple. You know, we don't pack our main menu with like 7 different pages, but at the same time, you've got to have steps for people to take on that journey. And part of that is they get buy-in when they actually have to like click on the next thing and they're learning more. The more pages they click on, the more likely they are to take that action to apply to work with you or schedule a sales call, pay you money. So you're building buy-in with like those micro decisions.
Micro decisions. There you go, Samantha. Every time someone reads something on your website and they shake their head yes and they click the button, they are one step closer to paying you actual money for your services because they said yes,
Yep.
yes, yes. And so by the time they get to that contact form where it's like, this is the next step to work with me, they've been nodding their head so much, it's a yes. And I do want to flip this back to Google though, because one of the reasons that I was asking you about the one page website is when I was still mentoring photographers, I would get photographers that had a bounce rate of like 99%. You have no idea how many times I worked with someone that had a bounce rate of higher than 90%. And they'd be like, Colie, I don't understand why my bounce rate is so high. And so I go to their website and you've got a one page website.
There's
And I
nowhere else
tell
for them
them,
to go.
well, where were they supposed to go? And
Yeah.
they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, of course you have a bounce rate that's almost 100%. You don't have anywhere else for these people to go. So Google sends them to you. They look at your page. They're not ready to work with you, but they've gotten every piece of information that you have offered and provided on that one page. And if there's nothing for them to click on when they close your website, that counts as a bounce.
Yeah.
It does not matter if they spent 15 minutes or 30 minutes looking at everything that you had on that one page. If there is nowhere for them to go next and they just leave your website, that's a bounce.
Yeah.
And if
Google
you have a
doesn't
bounce
know
rate, yeah.
what you've got on that. They don't understand that like this is everything that there is. All they're looking at is did they go to another page?
And if they don't and they leave, if you continue to have a bounce rate that's that high, Google is going to be like, oh, they must not be an expert.
Mm-hmm.
They must not have valuable information. And you know what happens? Google stops sending those people to your website. Google brings your ranking down from like page 1, 2, and 3 all the way to page 20 because everyone who's come to your website has basically told Google this information is not worth it.
Yeah.
Please stop wasting other people's time by sending them, to this website.
Yeah. And that's where something like a blog or a podcast is also helpful because it gives them more content. So if you have your podcast They go, they check out one episode and they're like, oh, well, here's another episode that you've listed. I'm going to go listen to that one. That improves your bounce rate because they're wanting more stuff, and Google sees, okay, they're staying here. They're checking this out. They want to learn more.
And the longer that you can keep someone on your website, the more valuable they are actually telling Google that your information is. I know that there's no form, guys. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. There's no form where they're telling Google, oh, this was really interesting. This was great. No, Google is using the metrics that it has, available to it to figure out if you are valuable. And one of the metrics that it uses is how long people stay on your website. So that's why it's really important when you're setting up your website and you're writing your blog posts and you're doing all of this, that there is a clear path that you want visitors to take in order to figure out who you are, what you do, who you service, and why the transformation that you provide is really beneficial and valuable. So like Samantha said, you have your menu and you have the home page, and then you have the about page, and then you have the services page. Guys, if you've ever been on a website, that is why those are in that order. Because if you look at the homepage and you get an overview, and then you're like, oh, well, I want to know more about this person. So then you click on that about and you read all about them. And you're like, okay, this is someone that I could have a drink with. This is someone that might be able to help me with whatever my problem is. And then you look at their services page. That is why it's in that order, is to keep the visitor interested, to keep them on the website as long as possible so that Google knows that you have very valuable information to offer the clients that you're trying to service and just, your audience in general.
Yeah. And that's why we keep that menu simple too, is so that those steps are really strategically directing them to where you want them to go. So when you had your Dubsado services on your photography website, people who were looking for photography would be like, I don't even know what that is. Why is she doing that? And people who are looking for Dubsado setup, they might be like interested. But if I were to go there, I was like, oh, well, I'm not a photographer. So can she really help me? And that's where keeping things simple, having like that one signature service. And if you've got something totally different from that, then put it on a different website. You could still link it like on your about page or something. I also do this. But I've been to so many websites where I'm like, okay, they're a website designer. I want to see like what they do. Oh, well, they also offer VA services and Dubsado setups, and they're a photographer. And I'm like, can they be good at any of these things?
That's a lot of stuff, guys. Wow. I mean, Samantha, we weren't even going to go down with the niching down conversation here, but let's actually talk about the offer. So when you're creating a website and people are presenting their offer to you that you're highlighting on this website, what are some do's and don'ts that you see related to the offer, to where you look at the offer and you're like, oh, that's high converting or it's not high converting? Like, as a website designer, what is your role in evaluating someone's offer before you actually put it on their website?
Usually the big piece of that comes in when I'm talking to them before we actually get into the design. So I'm asking them like, what is this thing that you're offering? What are you trying to do? And if they are not clear on what that is or who they serve, usually I'll tell them, okay, well, why don't we wait until you get a little bit more clarity on that? Or you can work with a copywriter who can at least give you the words, because you don't have the specifics, even if you kind of know them in your brain. So we do that evaluation. And then once I'm actually designing, what I found a lot of times is if somebody has multiple services and they're trying to like list out the differences, it's very common. Like they might have different package levels. A lot of times I'm emailing back going, okay, we need to make sure it's very clear, like who gets which one of these, how are they as distinct? Like, that's the piece that a lot of people miss, is making sure it's very clear who this specific package or service is for, and then the overall transformation. And if you don't have those and you can't be clear about them, it's not going to convert, because people are like, well, I don't know if this is what I need or not.
And the reason that I asked you this, Samantha, is I know that you and I have talked about this at length But even though I set up people's Dubsado accounts and you create websites for, business people, we have a bigger job, because when I'm asking people about what their business is, who they serve, what their offers are, if you can't make it make sense to me, so that I can set it up in Dubsado in a way to where when you send this proposal to your client, they're going to say yes and pay you money. If I don't understand what you're offering, I can't create a proposal for you to where other people are going to tell you yes, like just point blank. This is not really my role as your Dubsado setup specialist, but I damn sure have to make sure that I understand what you're offering before I can help you.
Yes.
And I feel like people overlook our skill as like counselors in a way. Like when they're giving us the information, I would imagine that you as the website designer, if their process doesn't make sense, if you can't figure out exactly what they're offering and who they're offering it to and how you can make it clear to their website visitors which path they should take depending on who they are and what they need, you are just doing a disservice to them to like create their website without getting clarity. And so sometimes we really do tell people, listen, you're not ready for me yet. These are the things that you need to think about and that you need to get clear on. And as soon as you are, please come back, because then I'm absolutely ready to help you. But if I can't figure out what it is that you're offering and how to put it forth in a way that makes people say yes, you're not ready for me to set up your client experience or your customer journey in Dubsado. And you're definitely not ready for Samantha to set up a website for you.
Yeah. I've seen this a lot with photographers, but I also worked with like a leak detection company, which was a fun website to design. And they were adding more services. And I said, well, as we add more services, we have to adjust the entire website so that people understand that you offer multiple things and they can figure out which one they actually need. It doesn't make sense for your headline on your homepage to talk about leak detection if you also offer these other things. So you've really got to think about that as you design and as you grow too. It might not just be throwing up another sales page. There will also be changes on your other pages that need to happen so that people get to the right place.
And you know what I just thought about, Samantha? Like, this is front end and back end offers.
Mm-hmm.
So listening audience, if you're not familiar with this, we should totally have a conversation about this on Instagram. But not every offer that you have needs to be on your website.
Mm-hmm.
There are some offers, what we're defining as a back end offer, like if you're offering leak detection, and then while you are doing that, you can help them with these other things. It might not be that you need to highlight those things everywhere on your website or in the customer journey or the process then, because if people need to hire you for leak detection first and those other things come after, it might not be that those need to have, main keywords for search optimization and all these things. So that's the other thing about getting really clear on your offers is if everyone needs to hire you for this one thing before you will help them with other things, then that's what you need to be optimizing your website for. It's what you need to put forth all your effort in when you're setting up your Dubsado and you're doing proposals and all of that. And then you can figure out a way to keep them as customers and increase your lifetime value after. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in because as you were talking, I was like, yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that there is nothing wrong with you having 10 offers. You just don't need to offer every single person all 10 of those offers.
Right. Well, then they can't make a decision. So I took website customization off my site altogether because I will only do it for somebody that I have already worked with and set up. So that used to be something that like I would highlight, and now it's not there. You can only get it if we have a conversation and I'm like, okay, yes, I like working with you. I know that you've got the right setup. So I offer it. People ask about it all the time, but it's not something I will do just for anybody who lands on my website.
Because it's your business. You get to make the decisions. Just because someone asked you for something doesn't necessarily mean that you have to offer it to them. Samantha, I think that's actually a really great place for us to end this conversation because I like it when my guests are telling everyone decisions that they have made in order to build a business that works for them. But let's remind everyone where they can find out more about your services.
My website is lemonandthesea.com, and I hang out on Instagram at lemonandthesea.
And guys, I know I said it at the start of this podcast, but she has a podcast
I do have
everyone
a podcast.
should be listening.
Yes, it's also on the website and everywhere you listen to podcasts.
All right, guys, that's all for this episode. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.